Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session with TJ Gamble. TJ Gamble is the founder and the CEO of Jamerson and the personality behind eCommerceaholic, which is a content brand that produces educational content for the e-commerce community. TJ actually has uniquely positioned himself as a thought leader in the industry due to his mass appeal to a wide array of community members. eCommerceaholic delivers meaningful content for the up-and-coming small merchants, large enterprise, and technical audience alike. And his company, Jamerson, works with merchants to help them achieve their growth through data analysis and store optimization. TJ, welcome. And we're very excited to hear your keynote. So I'm just going to give you the stage and just hide around the corner. Thank you.
All right. Glad to be here. So was that Tim Ash that just went before me? So I'm following Tim Ash in a conversion conference. I'm going to have to talk to my agent about that one. And I'm sure when Tim Ash is your opening act, that's some pretty high expectations. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance for disappointing you. What's that? I don't have an agent. So, but what I do have is all of this fancy live streaming stuff set up here. So we'll see how it goes. It'll either be really cool or a complete disaster. And the great thing is that we won't even know until we get into it. So we're just going to go in hot. So let's start by seeing if we can slide that title out. Look at that beautiful title right there. That's off to a good start. That's a good sign that this may actually work. And today we're going to talk about architecting your website into a funnel to increase your conversions. Now, I appreciate you joining me this afternoon. My name is TJ Gamble, and I am the founder and CEO of Jamerson. And we are an e-commerce agency that's dedicated to using data-driven decisions to help merchants grow their e-commerce businesses. And because we advocate for data-driven decisions, I'm going to add a disclaimer to this talk. And that is, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything that anyone says. Take things that sound interesting, test them for yourself, see the results. Your business is unique, so what works for one person may not work at all for you. So now that we've got those introductions and disclaimers out of the way, this month has been the longest year of my life, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for a lot of you out there. So before we get started, I'm just going to pour myself a little drink here, and I suggest you do the same. Seems to help the mood just a little bit. Just be sure not to overdo it. All right, so ready to get started now. In this conversation, we're going to talk about how to architect out the navigation of your website and discuss some examples of mistakes that I see people making. Now, I found a site that shows a lot of these mistakes all in one place. So we'll take a look at that one in just a little bit. And we're going to keep this pretty simple and high level. So if you're really advanced, you may find it a bit basic. You may think this is just e-commerce kindergarten. And maybe you're right. But I've seen your websites and you don't get it. So hopefully this will help. Now, e-commerce has been around for a long time now. And there are certain site structures that are considered normal. But a lot of people follow these norms with no real understanding of how or why those structures exist. And so they're often misused. Now, it's obvious a lot of folks don't understand the high-level concepts and theories behind how to structure their e-commerce sites. Worst case, perhaps this conversation provides some reinforcement of the theory behind some things you thought were just common sense. Now, we're going to get a little bit theoretical here for a second, but stick with me. We'll eventually come back to reality and get into the fun stuff. And so we've got a nice funnel on this side of the screen here. And I'm sure you've heard of a funnel, but I want to make sure I kind of go through the basics here for somebody maybe that hasn't heard of it. And we're not really talking about this physical funnel that you put oil in your car with or something, although this shape is where the name comes from. If you've been in digital marketing for any length of time, you've probably heard of ClickFunnels or marketing funnels. And these marketing funnels are usually very simple and straightforward conversion processes that have a fairly linear series of interactions that lead to some ultimate goal, probably the sale of some product or service. And what I mean by linear is there aren't usually a ton of variations in regards to customer interactions. It usually starts with some marketing effort that moves them into a newsletter, and then your goal is to interact with them in a few emails, stay top of mind until you move them on to some low-cost product or service with the hope of upselling them on something larger in the future. Now, there are obviously variations and more complex versions of that funnel. However, with most of them, each step of the funnel has a pretty straightforward option for the user to continue to progress down the funnel. And because the actions are fairly linear or in a straight line for those non-math majors, the funnel itself, in this case, conceptually, is talking about the people in that process. So at the top, you have a lot of people interacting with your marketing, and a few of them takes the next step and sign up for your newsletter, and then fewer and fewer and fewer until you get down to the bottom of the funnel, and hopefully some of them turn into conversions. Now, that type of funnel still applies to e-commerce, although the interactions aren't usually as linear. When customers hit your site at the top of your funnel, there is a huge variation in the journey they could possibly take to eventually convert into a sale, including the possibility of moving back up the funnel. Now, despite that complexity, we really want to try to incentivize our customer journey to be as linear as we possibly can. We do this by making sure our site is designed in a way to make it natural for a customer to continue moving down the funnel with each action they take. And the actual steps of your e-commerce funnel may vary depending on your ideal customer journey. So make sure you understand your customer needs to ensure you're incentivizing the right actions, or your conversions may suffer. Now, for this discussion, we'll keep it to a fairly standard e-commerce process. And that process has these basic steps in roughly this order. You have a home page, then a category page, then a filtered category page, could be a subcategory page or a search page, a product page, a shopping cart, and then a checkout. So these are the steps of the funnel. Each one of these may possibly, like checkout, may possibly have multiple steps in it, but you get the idea here. Theoretically, your users start at the top of the homepage of your funnel at the homepage. Now, this is e-commerce, so they may technically start in the middle on a product page, but you get the point. You then want to incentivize them to move down that funnel, make it easy for them to move sideways, as in move to another page at the same level of the funnel, but lessen the likelihood that they move back up. I'm going to repeat that just to make sure you understand. Once a user is at any stage in this funnel, we want to incentivize them to move down. We want to make it easy for them to move sideways, but we want to lessen the likelihood that they move back up to a previous step. Now, let me clarify that before you go do something stupid. Allow people to move back up the funnel, but don't make those the most obvious choices on the page, because that is moving away from your ultimate goal at the bottom, which is getting them to submit an order. Now, on the other side of that, you also don't want to force users down the funnel because they'll just bail on the whole process. There are other options out there. So the key term there is incentivize. You want to incentivize and make it easy for them to move to the next step further down the funnel. And you want that option to be the most obvious choice. The closer a user gets to the bottom of your funnel, the more they are showing buying intent, and thus the fewer options you want for users to move anywhere other than down. And we'll get into that a bit more, but it makes sense. If someone's on a product page, they're more likely to buy than someone that's on a home page. If they're on the shopping cart, then they've added something to their shopping cart. And if they're in checkout, you know, they're at least, they have the intention of trying to check out. Most merchants I talk to just assume a site that looks good will also perform well. They really only evaluate the site design to make sure it's aesthetically pleasing to themselves, with no real thought into how your customers actually interact with it. That's a mistake. It's tough to put yourself in the mindset of your customers. That's why hopefully providing you with this information and framework for thinking about your navigation excuse me, can help you build higher converting e-com experiences. We need this drink. So there are a few ways you, as a merchant, influence or incentivize your customers into performing an action. Now I'm going to go run through some of the basics here real quick, and we'll get to the example site that I want to show you to hopefully give you a bit more context to all of this. The first way to affect user actions is by button and navigational placement. Where on the page are things that people can click to move through the site. Put things where they are easily found, or at least the things you want them to click on are easily found and not buried 3 page scrolls down. Second is the use of color. You want your key actions on the site that move the users down the funnel to be an easily recognizable, preferably bright, contrasting color from the rest of your site. These buttons need to stand out. When presented with a lot of information, people don't read, they skim. Making them the same color as other elements on your site may look pretty, but it is basically camouflaging those buttons. So keep in mind, though, that you can actually use that camouflage to your advantage on buttons that don't move people down the funnel. The third thing you can do is limiting distractions and clutter to make the preferred choice clear. There should never be any confusion as to what you want your customers' next steps to be. Color plays into that, but it's only a small part. Now, this is also about visual design, spacing, the size of objects, and the amount of options that you provide and how those options are organized. Now, I recently came across a site, like I mentioned before, doing a lot of these things wrong. And I figure we learn by looking at mistakes a lot more than we learn by looking at folks doing it right. So let's just jump into this example. The great thing about this site, for our purposes, is that it has some common mistakes at every step of the funnel. So we only need to go through this one site to really emphasize at least the gist of what we're talking about here and how you should be thinking of your site as a linear process to funnel people through to checkout. And the website is Kerrigan Meats, and I'm going to pull it up here on the screen share. Now, I had Barry, the owner of Kerrigan's, on my live stream about a month ago, so I know he's working on a new Shopify site to correct a lot of these issues. So we're not just picking on him. I thought he'd be live before this presentation, but it looks like current circumstances may have delayed his project. And I went through a lot of this with him, so hopefully the new site he's working on addresses a lot of these issues. And let's see if I can get this screen share going here. All right, so I need to share screen. Oh, application window and click share. Okay. All right, looks like we are screen sharing here. So it looks like that's working. So we'll start at the theoretical top of the home page. And so I'm not really trying to redesign the entire site. I know there are a few issues that I won't even touch on here. So bear with me if you see other issues on the site, as I want to focus on this particular topic of moving down the process. And the big issue that Kerrigan's has on the homepage are these banners under the main slider. If I come to this page, there are 21 banners, all of similar design, similar size, even spacing, 21 options right here. And that's just information overload. Whether you like the design or not, they're aesthetically well done. Like, it's obvious a ton of work has been put into these banners. Great photography, solid graphic design, even spacing, all the hallmarks of a good looking site. And that goes back to what I mentioned before. Just because something looks pleasing doesn't mean it'll convert well. And there are a few mistakes with these banners. First, there are just too many of them. Do not overwhelm people with options, or they're likely to take none of them. So first, we're going to want to eliminate a lot of these options. Even if you only have a few, though, and they're all the same size like this, they all carry the same visual weight. So you aren't leading your customer into a particular choice. So for the ones we do keep, we still want to create some sort of visual hierarchy. And in an ideal world, you would personalize these to your guests. If it's a returning customer, show the category they visit most or a what's new section. If they're a new customer, perhaps the best-selling categories have the highest priority. If you don't have those capabilities, don't worry. What we're going to do here, though, is create some visual prioritization to minimize the choice overload. and to incentivize our customers to move down the funnel. And we will just do what we think would be the most popular categories. Like, for instance, on this page right here, these top two, they're not even meat. Like that's like a fake meat burger and some sort of fake out. Like, it's not even, this is a butcher shop. These are not even meat. These can't be the most popular options. Like, I would be shocked. So what we're going to do here is, you know, try to address that. And another mistake on this page are the actual blocks that are shown. This is prime real estate. This is the home page. This is the landing page people land on. This is the page where they have the most options to move throughout the site. You really want to be trying to market the important things that move them down the funnel. So things like about our delivery service, or brand ambassadors, or catering, recipes, you know, all of these are not part of our funnel that we listed. And so they're all sideways moves at best. They don't move you down the funnel, so they're at best sideways. Now, again, it's not bad to move sideways, but we don't want the options we are promoting in prime real estate to be sideways moves. So let's look at a quick and dirty improvement to this page. And what we've done here is we have the important banners up top, you know, just hypothetically, you know, burger, low carb. And then we've created some visual hierarchy out of these. And this simple change really emphasizes the top three items. Like, it really makes these items jump out, and it shows that they're important, and it increases the likelihood that our customer is going to choose one of those options. And you want to make sure that those three options are all options that carry you down the funnel. So to a category page or to a product page. And so we're going to go one step down the funnel here and look at the mistakes on that page. So I'm going to choose burgers, and we come to the burger page. Now, the biggest problem on this page is the list of product categories in the left column. First, that is a hell of a lot of categories. Like, I can't even wrap there's multiple ones that say burgers of different types. Like, that is confusion at its finest. That is information overload. And so a lot of work needs to go into reorganizing these into a small collection of top level categories. Second, because we're on a category page, any link to a category page is actually going to be a sideways move in our funnel. The next logical step down the funnel is either a subcategory page, a filtered category, or a product page. So we want to show our popular products first, or personalized product recommendations if you have those capabilities. So, you know, if we put our product recommendations here that are popular, that increases the likelihood somebody's going to skip the filtered product or subcategory and go straight to a product. That's great. If they can skip 2 or 3 steps down our funnel, that is wonderful. So we want to make sure we incentivize them here. Like, the number one option here, it says it's sorted by popularity, but the number one option is a turkey burger. Like, I have a hard time believing that a turkey burger is the number one option at a butcher shop, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys love your turkey burgers. I don't know. But in the left column, we want to get rid of this garbled mess, and we really want to focus on these items down here, the filters that move the user down the funnel. And so what would a quick and dirty redo of this page look like? Now, what we did here is pretty simple. We move filters up to the top left. I don't really know what his actual product recommendations are, but you definitely want them sorted by popularity. We dropped the side navigation altogether. I really think a few high-level categories up here in this main bar, maybe it's under shop, that could be argued. I really think across this main bar that filter you down into a better category structure would be better. But if you needed to show those here on this page, you do so in this left column over here underneath the filters. You move it down to deprioritize moving sideways. It's there, but it's not the priority like moving down the funnel. And so I'm going to choose these turkey burgers because I really want to order these turkey burgers and figure out why they're the number one product on the site here. And we click and go to the next page down the funnel, which is the product page. Now, the big sin on this page is the use of color. That add to cart button is gold, which is an accent color that's used throughout the site on non-actionable items. This bar up here, the logo, like there's all sorts of things you can't click on that are gold. And that's just a no-no. First, it doesn't immediately register as a button because it's the same color as those other elements. But on some pages, some product pages that have options, it's actually inactivated and faded out, but you can barely tell because it's just a slightly lighter color of gold. And that's bad news all the way around. Now, I do like the large size of the button. I think it could be even bigger or more obvious, but we want to turn it into something that is a little more actionable. So the big change we made here is to make that button obvious. Like, it's simple. Don't make them think. Make it obvious what you want them to do. Now, I'm not a graphic designer. You probably have one designer better looking button than that, something that fits into your design. But that, you want to make sure that they know and they don't have to look for that action that takes them down this funnel. Now, you could see on this page, there's no side navigation like there was on a category page because, as we're moving down the funnel, we're presenting them with less options. Most carts do this by default. This is a common product detail page layout. And you'll often have some recommended products down here at the bottom that move them laterally, but you really have to hunt a bit on this page to move back up the funnel. And then I'm going to add this sucker to my cart. And this is where we start to get pretty interesting here. He has some upsells over here, which I get the need to do upsells. Everybody wants to increase that average order value, right? Can we squeeze 7 more pennies out of every person that places an order on the website? In theory, that's fine, but that is prime real estate in the top right-hand corner of this page. And so really what you've done is, instead of emphasizing placing the order, you've emphasized adding something else to the cart. And there's a couple of issues on this particular implementation here. This item that has add to cart here, actually, if you click it, it'll add the item to your cart and you stay on this page. It's pretty slick. It works fairly well. Not a big problem there. But the ones that have options, they can't have the options on this page. So that link would actually take me back up the funnel to a product detail page. And we're all the way down here in cart. We want to fight to stay down here in cart. We don't want to move back up the page. We definitely don't want to be putting in prime real estate things that incentivize users to move back up the funnel. That's violating our golden rule. So a simple thing like that can have a profound impact. So a cleaned up version of this page would really just deprioritize those items that don't move the customer down the funnel, like upsells, and in this case, a subscription plan. Although I gotta be curious as to how many people, when just randomly presented with it on a cart page, are like, yeah, I think I'll subscribe to that. I really think you would have more success if you just didn't mention subscribing, you let them check out and then hit them on that last page or with some follow-up emails asking them to subscribe to whatever product you're trying to get them to subscribe to. But, we haven't removed those options. They're still here, although I would definitely remove this guy that links you back up and just do simple products. But they're just deprioritized. They're moved down the screen, and the button we want you to click on is up top and obvious. So those are no longer the focus of the page. Now on to the final step in our checkout process here, and are into our funnel, and that's checkout. And there are a couple of problems here. First, most carts these days take care of this by default if you have a decent theme, and that's dropping this top navigation. There should be just a simplified branded header up here at the top. We are so close to the bottom of the funnel that you literally should have to fight and claw your way out of this funnel at this point. Like, we don't want any distractions or any reason for anybody to click out of the checkout process. Maybe a back button or something like that. Like, it's physically possible if they click the logo to go, back up or something like that. But we definitely don't want to prioritize those actions. And the other big thing here is that it's a login page. Now, if you need a login page for some reason, make sure you actually have a reason first. and then it's fine. I understand it. But on this page, there's a skip login button down in the corner. So it's not even required. Like, this literally just added an artificial level to the funnel that a user must go around in order to check out. If something's optional, make them click to do it, not click to not do it. Does that make sense? Yeah, that totally made sense. Almost everyone has and uses browser-based autocompletes these days. So take advantage of that. Don't force a login unless you have a reason. It's usually quicker for me to check out without an account these days than with. And you may have some strategic reason to do it, and I understand that. So a simplified version of this checkout would probably look something like this. We put, a big green button. Again, those buttons are very similar in size and color and shape at each step, because people start getting trained to what those next steps look like. It kind of looks ridiculous here. Again, have a designer fix it on your site. We also used the camouflage here on the previous button. So, it's one of those colors that kind of blends in. So it's hidden a little bit. We've also dropped the unneeded step of logging in, and we've given a user an option to click to log in. So it's optional. You don't have to do it, but if you want to, you could click that login button, perhaps open up a hidden form here that they could then log in with. The other big change is dropping all of the navigation. No header, no footer. Like, we dropped all the navigation. You might want to add a back button or something like that, but you get the idea. And that is basically how we take a site and convert it from a mess of spaghetti links going all over the place and turn it into a high converting linear funnel. So to recap, you really need to make sure you understand your intended customer journey. If someone landed on your homepage and was on a mission to order a product, what steps would they take to locate and buy that item? And then sit down at each step and make sure you're intentionally making the next step the obvious choice. Don't get cued and bogged down by things that look pretty. See it too many times. I want it to look this way. Make it easy on your user, and use the levers that you have of color, placement, organization to persuade the potential customer to act in the way that you want them to act. Be very deliberate with your navigational items and make sure people are moving down the funnel. And that's pretty much what I had here. I appreciate you watching. Presentation was a little bit off the cuff here. Let's see if I can close my screen share here. All right. And it's a little bit off the cuff, but hopefully all of that made sense and was useful. If you want to get in touch with me, you find me at the following locations, pretty much every social media platform at eCommerceaholic. That's my email address. Happy to answer any questions. I know we don't have a lot of time and there's another presentation coming up. But if there are any particular questions, however we want that to work.
So I have a question from Gerald, and he's asking you, are the presented website changes data-driven or based on best practices?
Both, right? Like, I didn't even drink my drink here. You want to start with best practices and then let the data guide you. So if you're starting fresh and you don't have a lot of data, start with best practices. And then, make sure everything you do could probably be done a little bit better. And so let the data guide you. Split test. You did best practices. Okay, the button's green. What happens if we made it red? What happens if we made it yellow? What if it was 50% bigger or 50% smaller? You want to constantly be tweaking and evolving that. You really want to pay attention to what your customers are clicking on to make sure you're incentivizing the right action. So my answer is both.
Okay, let me see if we might have time for one more question. Okay. And I'm going to ask the audience, do you guys want to ask TJ something else? This is the moment.
This is the time. Again, if you don't get your questions in now, shoot me an email, whatever you want to do.
Okay. What? So actually, Valentin is asking you, what's the worst mistake you can do in e-commerce for a startup?
Whew, worst mistake you can do. I really think the biggest mistake most people do is just not having an understanding of their customers, right? They build a website for themselves and not for their customers. And you may have started as a customer, but as soon as you become a business owner, you have different priorities. And so, not understanding exactly what that customer journey looks like is probably the biggest mistake, the most common mistake, at least. I mean, you could make bigger ones. You could just make a website that doesn't load. But the most common one for sure.
Okay, and the last question from Anna. She's asking you if there's any tool you use more. Like, do you have a soft spot for a tool?
There are a ton of tools out there, and I hate just making general recommendations because you never can tell somebody's particular budget. Google, if you're doing, Google has A/B testing tools. There's a lot of paid tools on the market. I think the one we enjoy the most is probably glue.io, GLEW.io. It really collects a lot of data. Pulls in Google Analytics, but we can pull data from a bunch of different systems and run all sorts of reports. So if you're, it's a business intelligence tool, but it's not cheap, but a lot more affordable than most of the big BI tools out there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was really, really useful for me too. I just wrote that thing down with the buttons, having the color of inactive elements on the website. I wrote that down. And if it's okay with you, we can share your presentation with the audience, and then you can get in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, TJ. Have a great day. Thank you guys for watching the keynote. We have coming up next, Derek Haney from eCommerceTech.io. Thank you.
As an e-commerce manager, you want to stop spending money on expensive ads. OmniConvert Explore helps you improve conversion through A/B testing, personalization, and surveys. Understand that growth is also a matter of retention, not only acquisition. With OmniConvert Reveal, you'll understand segments, monitor customer experience, and nurture your customers on every channel.